Fantasy football is supposed to be fun, right? It's a game within a game, for crying out loud. Well, for a game within another game, I'm not having all that much fun after week 7 because it was a brutal injury week in the NFL. Multiple fantasy relevant players at multiple positions are injured and in ways that we can already confirm are going to be season ending. That's not good. And to add insult to injury, literally here, we've got the Chiefs and the Chargers, two of the most fantasy relevant offenses in the NFL. Not available to us because they're on bye weeks. Great. This is awesome. But I'll be honest, while we shed a proverbial tear for those injured squad mates who we might not have available to us the rest of the season, this is where fantasy champions are made. These moments. What's up, everyone? My name is Matt Savoca at Draftaholic, and I'm here at the Stochastic Fantasy Football channel breaking down the waiver wire plays for Week 8 in the NFL. We are recording before Monday Night Football. We want to get the info to the people, but we do have the ability to get aggressive on waivers already. We may make some adjustments after that final game, but with one of the lowest totals we've seen in the entire season, I'm not sure Bears versus Patriots is going to change our opinions all that much. We got to stay up with the stats and data more so than our league mates as we round into the second half of the NFL fantasy season. And what if your squad was able to rip off 5 straight wins? How would that change your fantasy league? How would it turn it upside down? That's still possible for us. That's still capable. That's in our range of outcomes, and that's what we're trying to do today. We're also trying to get you free money with our partners over at BetMGM. I'll tell you how to do that later, but right now, hit subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and let's dig into the Week 8 waivers. The injury page for Week 7. I almost wanted to avoid it because most of you already know about this because you've been affected by one or more players on this list. We got to talk about Breece Hall. Broke off a 62-yard touchdown and then promptly was taken away from us, likely for the rest of the season. By the time you're listening to this, we may have already had an MRI confirming the worst for Breece Hall, just on pace for an excellent rookie season, and now we have to wait until 2023 to see him on the field again. Mike Williams was carted off for the Los Angeles Chargers. They have a bye week, but I'm not sure we're going to see him anytime soon. Amon-Ra St. Brown had an early exit for the Detroit Lions. That was tough, and then DK Metcalf also carted off with a knee injury. This is super concerning, and we do have some players that we can get to on the waiver wire, but still, a playmaker like Metcalf leaving the Seahawks is just a total bummer, both from a fantasy perspective and a real NFL perspective. Then Corey Davis, Allen Lazard, Nico Collins, Russell Gage, a bunch of tertiary receivers who had key roles on their teams may be out for a while here. And then backup Chuba Hubbard, David Njoku, a tight end that people were betting on, and Mike Boone, who's in a walking boot. This was just one of those weeks in the NFL. You hate to see it, but we still got to make moves here. Let's get into the waiver picks for Week 8. As we dig into a crazy Week 8 waiver wire, I want to mention that we're only talking about players right now that are rostered in less than 35% of leagues. So we're relevant to the most people, the most leagues. As we get into the video, we will have a chart for you with the check if they're rostered section. But most of those players in most of your competitive leagues, I know those players have been gobbled up a long time. But how about Marquise Goodwin? Right now rostered in exactly 0% of leagues, had a season high 54% snap share because DK Metcalf was carted off. We talked about that earlier. Goodwin is the one who came in and saw production immediately, tied for a season high with 5 targets, 4 catches. He's not going to catch 2 touchdowns like he did in Week 7, but the schedule upcoming looks like there's actually some decent upside potential for Goodwin and the Seahawks. The Giants, while they're 6-1, their defense from an advanced metric standpoint, only so-so, only league average. Then you got Arizona and Tampa Bay upcoming after that. This is a speedy receiver who can get open deep, and Geno Smith suddenly can get players solid fantasy performances. That's enough for me, especially with a player who's available in pretty much every league there is. Another really strong option at wideout available to us in most every league is Parris Campbell. 89% of leagues currently have him on the waiver wire, and he's had 23 targets over the last 2 weeks. Indianapolis tends to be a roller coaster from week to week in terms of offensive efficiency, but in terms of how much they pass, there's no concerns there. They have the highest pass rate in a neutral game script this year, and that means Parris Campbell, who's becoming the target monster they've wanted him to become over the last 3 seasons, only derailed by injuries, he's suddenly becoming that player you can rely on. He has a low average depth of target, which usually means a higher catch rate, especially good for full PPR leagues, but not bad for half PPR either. And we've wanted to see this hyper-athletic day 2 player take over this role. The Colts are not a great offense right now, but they pass the most. And so we can trust Parris Campbell, I think even more than Alec Pierce going forward. Hey guys, we got an awesome limited time offer from our partners over at BetMGM. This offer expires on October 25th, so take advantage of one of the best sportsbook offers I have ever seen come across our desk. If you do a $10 pregame moneyline bet on any sport over at BetMGM, you get $200 in free bets so long as one person scores a goal in the NHL. Basically 100% chance one person scores a goal in the NHL. All you have to do is make a $10 moneyline bet, but get started by clicking the link below in the video description. That'll help you out, that'll help us out, and honestly, that is a way to build your bankroll in a great way. Thank you to BetMGM. This is an awesome time to get into the action over there. Offer expires October 25th. And sneaking in just under the 35% threshold, Zay Jones, currently rostered in just a third of leagues, 33% right now. He's top 15 among all wide receivers this season in expected fantasy points. That's opportunity value, targets, and air yards. He's had 98% and 99% snap shares over the last 2 weeks. And he's got 4 games this season with 8+ targets. That's really enough for me to have him on a roster, period. I realize Denver is his next game. That's not good. But after that, the schedule opens up. He's got Las Vegas, Kansas City, a bye week, Baltimore, and Detroit. Some bad defenses and some shootout potential for Zay Jones and the Jaguars, who need to figure things out offensively if they want any hope in the AFC South. I actually think the longer-term value might be on DeAndre Carter of the Los Angeles Chargers. Currently rostered in just 10% of leagues. He had a season-high 7 targets in Week 7 because of Mike Williams' injury. We saw 12.3 yards per catch, excellent efficiency, 94% snap share. Okay, this is an every-down player, and he has never played a 74% snap share or higher previously to this. That means Williams was the reason we saw DeAndre Carter's usage increase. He's also got kick returning duties. At this point, we may see him shift over to a full-time offensive role, but if you're in a kick return league, you might get a bonus there as well. I know that the Chargers are on bye this week, but this is a solid speculative stash. I really like DeAndre Carter rest of season. Also check for Mecole Hardman, who's rostered in less than a third of leagues right now. Dynamic playmakers playing with Patrick Mahomes tend to have spike weeks like Mecole Hardman had this week. Against San Francisco, Kansas City just looked unstoppable. Hardman's usage was okay. 4 targets, 2 rushes, and he was obviously efficient, had that 25-yard run to the house. Would like to see closer to 8 to 10 opportunities for Hardman, but again, a speedster playing with Mahomes is going to have weeks like this. He's got the bye week coming up, so I can't rate him that highly among wide receivers, but then Tennessee, Jacksonville, and the Chargers, this could be a lot more scoring for Hardman in the future, especially going into the second half of the season. I like him as a great wide receiver stash. And while it's not a fantastic week at the running back position on the waiver wire, we have to take some shots here, especially if you lost a player like Breece Hall. Ty Johnson is probably the player on the Jets that benefits the most. Just a 17% snap share in Week 7 after Hall went down. That's not fantastic. But the Jets are hurting offensively with injuries to Hall and Corey Davis now. Elijah Moore's got drama. He's not playing. Braxton Berrios is more of a gadget player. And Garrett Wilson isn't being utilized with Zach Wilson as much as he was with Joe Flacco. So really, I'm looking for playmakers, possible playmakers on the Jets. And the schedule isn't that great either. But if you need a running back, you could do worse than Ty Johnson, who gets the Patriots, the Bills, and then a bye. He's in 0% of league rosters right now. But if you were asking me what my favorite speculative running back ad for Week 8 would be, it's probably the Cardinals' Keaontay Ingram. This is a late-round pick who got usage last week because James Conner and Darrell Williams were sidelined. He's the next in line at the running back position after Eno Benjamin, and we saw 30% snap share for Ingram last week against the Saints. This is 11 opportunities as well, 2 targets in those 11 opportunities. He found the end zone as a rusher while being fairly inefficient. He's got a decent schedule coming up too. Minnesota, Seattle, the Rams, and San Francisco. I guess those last 2 are tougher defenses, especially against the run, but still Keaontay Ingram, a decent handcuff ad and only rostered in 4% of leagues right now. A few more wide receivers available for us this week. I mean, there's just a ton of wideouts, but look to Sammy Watkins, available in 89% of leagues right now. Played a decent 52% of snaps in his first game back from injured reserve. Green Bay is just starving for offensive talent. That's really all this is about. 4+ targets in back-to-back games he's played, I should say. And the Lazard injury could theoretically boost the route run rate for Watkins here. Buffalo's upcoming. They're probably going to lose that. But then they got the Detroit defense, one of the worst in the NFL. Maybe, just maybe, that can be a get-right game. Watkins available, again, in 89% of leagues. I like Van Jefferson if you have an IR slot. Allen Robinson isn't working for the Rams, and he's just a decent stash for me, again, if you've got that IR slot. Terrace Marshall, this is another team that's just not good offensively, but starving for talent, especially at wide receiver too. Terrace Marshall maybe finally gets that role. He's rostered in just 4% of leagues. And finally, with Corey Davis likely out, with Elijah Moore likely out, with Breece Hall out for the season, maybe Denzel Mims, maybe, just maybe, gets a shot here on the Jets. I can't say I'm looking forward to rostering Denzel Mims, but in my deepest leagues, I might have to go there as the bye weeks hit. At tight end, we've got two solid options, the first of which played on Thursday night in week 7, but don't forget about Juwan Johnson's 5-target performance. 32 yards is not that much, but 2 scores is what we're hoping for with a speculative ad at tight end. Obviously, we're not going to get that every single week, but Dalton clearly trusts Juwan Johnson near the goal line. The only problem, of course, he's competing for goal line looks with players like Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, and the rest of the wide receivers of the Saints if they can manage to get on the field and stay healthy. Still, I'm looking at a player with a 74% snap share, top 5 usage in terms of route participation rate at the tight end position in week 7. So Johnson, who's currently rostered in just 5% of leagues, looks like a really great ad if you're struggling at the tight end position, or maybe you have a player like Kelsey on bye. And while this is a tough player to grade moving forward, Greg Dulcich has averaged 6 targets a game in his first 2 NFL starts for the Denver Broncos. This was a player who in college played a hybrid tight end receiver role, and the Denver offense, as we know, is really bad, whether it's Brett Rippon or Russell Wilson, but they've got Jacksonville, a bye, Tennessee, Las Vegas, and Carolina. So they don't have a ton of defensive juggernauts upcoming in their schedule. Honestly, that is a fantastic schedule for a player like Dulcich, who has gotten nothing but solid usage as he's entered the league. He's just rostered in 14% of leagues right now. Hey, decent usage on a bad team is an archetype we can chase at the low-end tight end one. At quarterback, Andy Dalton looks like the starter for the New Orleans Saints, and while he keeps throwing bad interceptions, he's also scoring fantasy points because he threw a season-high 47 times. If they're going to be in shootouts like they were Thursday night, Dalton is going to be a fantasy-relevant quarterback, and he's got Las Vegas, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and the Rams coming up next. Not all of those defenses are as good as their brand names, especially Baltimore and Pittsburgh. This is a decent upside play. I can't believe I'm saying Andy Dalton is a decent upside play who could be getting more and more receivers back healthy. I realize Winston could always be there if Dalton throws a few back-breaking picks, but guess what? Then Jameis Winston's going to throw a few back-breaking picks. And if you need a super flex or a QB2, maybe PJ Walker is startable. Currently just rostered in 5% of leagues. 15 fantasy points was as good as we could have hoped for against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He only passed 15 times in the process as well. And one thing, PJ Walker can rush, but he hasn't been rushing at all. So really we got to hope that he passes more often, or maybe adds that rushing acumen back to his game. The schedule's decent. Atlanta's next, then Cincinnati, Atlanta again, and then Baltimore. So he actually has a solid schedule, and they've already said that he may not be losing his job back to Baker Mayfield. Obviously, you have to take it week by week with Walker, but at just 5% rostered, you could do worse with the last player on your bench. And as promised, here are the players you need to check for before you go down the list of all the players we just mentioned, because if someone accidentally dropped one of these guys, they just shouldn't be on waiver wires at all. Michael Carter is rostered in 66% of leagues, but if someone dropped him, he's going to be an every week starter moving forward with the Breece Hall injury. Same with Isaiah Pacheco. Clyde Edwards-Helaire scored fantasy points, but Pacheco is the leader in terms of snap share and opportunity share going forward. Donta Foreman, same thing in the much worse Carolina offense. I still think Chuba Hubbard at 47% rostered is a decent ad. Latavius Murray is going to continue to get more work, especially with Mike Boone in a walking boot. And then Rachaad White and Gus Edwards are also technically backup running backs, but their teams use them enough to be fantasy relevant in an absolute pinch. Same with Wan'Dale Robinson. The Giants don't pass a ton, but this rookie looks impressive when he's on the field. He's getting looks, and he's currently rostered in just 44% of leagues. A wild week 8 in waivers, but we got you covered this week. And that's going to do it for our waiver wire picks for week 8 fantasy football. This was a crazy week. Stay strong, stay the course, stay aggressive, and we can take down some fantasy championships soon enough. My name is Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and take advantage of that awesome offer from our friends over at BetMGM. Keep it right here for all the strategy shows, live shows, and of course, VODs just like this one. We'll see you guys later.